So hello and welcome to What You Need to Know About Owning a Franchise Business on behalf of Harford County's Department of Economic Development and HYPE, which stands for Harford Young Professionals and Entrepreneurs. We welcome you this evening. I'm Angela Rose. I work with the Harford County Chamber of Commerce, and we oversee HYPE. That is that entrepreneurial initiative and resource from the private sector side, and obviously Harford County's Department of Economic Development is from the government side. It's my pleasure to introduce one of the Harford County Chamber board members and owner of the Del Gallo Group, which is a business consultation firm, Ryan Del Gallo, and he serves many hats. So he's another partner, and he'll talk about that, but then he'll introduce our wonderful speaker this evening, Richard Bach. Thanks, gentlemen.
All right, thank you, Angela. So welcome everybody this evening. So Richard Bach has been an excellent resource within the SBA Partner Network, Harford County Economic Development, Small Business Development Center, and many other private companies. So the hats that I wear within the county, of course, I'm a private firm where I specialize in finance, consulting, funding franchises, etc. But also the nonprofit type organization that I work with is the Small Business Development Center. So that's where you can gain access to pre-venture, startup, and growth stage consulting in the areas of money management and marketing, all at no cost. Right? So if you're interested in opening a franchise and you need to understand the LLC process, you need to understand business planning, how to access that capital, we can assist you at no cost. And Mr. Richard Bach is one of our resource partners to continue to guide our entrepreneurs through their franchising process and to make that correct selection. So without further ado, Richard.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for showing up and being a little patient with me. Before we get started, I'm going to make one big ask, and that is that we make this conversational. I used to do this all the time. I've been in this world for 2000, in this business, for 13 years, and I used to do this live all the time. And to show you how long the reach of COVID is, I haven't done it live since COVID. I do webinars all the time, and it's so much nicer to have people in front of me and people who can ask questions, and we can make it interactive. So please, I would ask you to ask as many questions as come up. I can't possibly anticipate everything that you want to know. So if you ask questions, everybody's going to benefit. So with that, we are here to talk about franchise businesses. What I'm hoping that you'll come away with is the ability, if you choose to do so, to start investigating franchise business ownership on your own. So I'm going to try to give you, as much as we can in the time that we've got, a good understanding of not only what a franchise is, but also how to go about making the right decision for yourself. So, a little bit about me. So I actually am a franchise owner, and I got to franchise ownership the way many people do. It was a second career. I spent 25 years in the automobile industry. I worked for Volvo, the car company, did a lot of different things for them, and the last thing I was doing was I was in charge of sales and marketing for all the European countries. I lived in Europe. And I came back and I opened up 2 Huntington Learning Centers, including the one here in Bel Air that probably most of you are familiar with. And that's an odd career transition. Corporate executive, car guy, help kids improve their reading and math. It's not what we normally think about as a career path. And it's part of the story about franchising that I want to share with you. So I did 23 years, well actually now it's almost 30 years ago, I opened up the Huntington Centers, one in Bel Air, one in Perry Hall. And in doing that, I met a lot of business owners, Huntington owners and others. And I saw that many people did great. I did great. It was great for me. I not only made a lot of money, but I made a difference for thousands, literally thousands of families in and around the area. But I also saw people fail. I saw people who didn't do so well. And I realized, and again, that wasn't just Huntington, that was other businesses as well. And what I realized is that most of the people who failed in business ownership did so because they didn't know what they were really getting into. They didn't take the time to really research and understand not only what the business did, but their role was in the business. So I saw that happening and I didn't like it. And so a little bit more than 13 years ago, I had the opportunity to buy another franchise called FranNet. And at FranNet, we help people, it's a franchise that helps people find a franchise. And what I do is I try to help people get into business the right way and give them a much better chance at success. So that's what I do. I'm going to circle back and give you about a 30-second advertisement at the very end of this. Let's talk about what you came for, which is to understand about franchising. I'm sure if you're thinking about franchising, you're thinking about business ownership. And if you're really thinking about business ownership, you've got three choices. There are some other outliers, smaller options. But for the most part, if you're going to own a business, you're going to do one of these three things. You're going to start from scratch. That's what most people do. It gives you the infinite control. Because of these three options, for a comparable business, it's the least expensive. So it has the potential, if you're successful, to give you the best return on investment. But you don't know what you don't know. And you've got to learn an awful lot of stuff to run a business. And this is the option that has the highest failure rate. And because of that, it's very difficult to get funding for that option. So there's good, total control, potentially the best ROI. There's bad, highest risk, hard to get funded. The safest option is to buy somebody else's successful business. It's already there. The person who's selling you the business will probably help you learn how to run it and help you know what you don't know as you step up. It's also going to give you immediate cash flow. If it's a successful business, you're going to be making money on day one. The other two options, there's going to be, let's say, a year before you actually make money. This option, you're making money on day one. Of course, when somebody sells their own business that they started up some years ago and made an investment in, they want equity growth. They want more for that business than they originally invested. And the consequence of that is that this is the most expensive option. So safest, and you're limited to what's for sale in your market, with your budget, and with your business interests. So, safest, most expensive, and by the way, this is also very easy to fund. Franchise. So now we start talking about franchises. Franchises are kind of a hybrid between the two. It is an existing business. It exists all over the country, but it doesn't exist on your street corner. So you're buying into a system that does exist where the franchise company is going to teach you everything that you don't know. They're going to help you get started in your business and give you a much better chance at success. Because of that, very easy to get funding for a franchise. Now, what might you not like? If you buy a franchise business, you do what they do. You can't go to McDonald's and get ballet lessons, right? You go to McDonald's, you get a fish sandwich, you get a hamburger. That's your choices. And you can only sell the hamburgers that McDonald's lets you sell. So you're limited in what you can do. So, hybrid between the first two, easy to get funded, lots of support, limitations on what you can do. Each one has a positive, each one has a negative. So let's dig deeper then into the franchise option. I went through this because I want you to understand, franchise is not the right option for everybody. Okay? So let's see what franchising is about. First thing I thought we'd start off with was some numbers. So there's a group called the International Franchise Association, and it's our trade group, right? And they work with a company called FranData, and every year they do, as all business associations do, they did projections about what the franchise world would look like in 2025. And I can tell you that we're tracking pretty close to these numbers. So first thing, we're expecting 2.5% growth in the number of local franchise businesses, 2.5% growth, moving up to 851,000 franchise businesses out on the street. So when you think about franchises, you may not have the scope to realize how big it actually is. Almost 900,000 franchise businesses out there. Employment. There are 213,000, or we expect to add 213,000 more people, putting us up in that 9 million employee rate. So we not only have a lot of locations, but we have a lot of employees. And other data that I'm not going to share with you today tells us that those employees are better compensated, they are better trained, and they have a longer retention. In terms of financial performance, which of course I'm sure you're mostly interested in, franchises revenue, we expect it to go up to $936 billion in the United States alone. So it's a big business. And if you think about that 4.4% growth and compare it to the GDP for the country, we only expect the national GDP, the growth, to go up by 1.9%. So it's more than doubling the growth of the economy in total. And then maybe bringing it a little closer to home, if we look at Maryland, the research says that Maryland is going to be one of the top 10 growth states, and that we would grow from 16.4 thousand local businesses to 2.4% more, and from 173,000 employees plus 3.5%. So right in Maryland, we franchise companies are a major component of the economy. Does that surprise anybody? Mm-hmm. Not what you would have thought. And with significant revenue inside the state. So I just wanted to start off to give you some sense of magnitude. And again, please ask questions as we go along. So what is a franchise? What you probably already understand about a franchise is when you want to buy into a franchise system, you're essentially getting a license to use a proven system. You're going to get to use the trademarks, the company name. You're going to learn they're going to teach you how to deliver the products or services that business is in. They're going to provide you with the business systems to run the franchise, and they're going to train you how to do all of that. Okay? To get that, you have to pay a franchise fee. Franchise fee is a one-time fee, typically $45,000 to $65,000, typically. There are outliers, but your likelihood is if you buy a franchise, you're going to be in that range. It's a one-time fee. It is not where the franchisor makes money. That is paying to get you started. It's their cost of onboarding you. Okay? Where they make their money is in ongoing royalty payments. So every month, you're going to pay them somewhere between 5 to 8% of your gross revenue. That's where they make money. And that's an important thing that it may not sound like it, but it's one of the biggest benefits to you, is that that's how they make money. So let me explain it to you what franchise is in maybe a more academic sense, but there's a reason that I want to explain it maybe a little differently. As a business model, a franchise is a very efficient distribution system. Distribution is the highest cost of operation for most businesses. It's bringing the product to market, paying for the marketing, paying for the employees who are delivering it, carrying the inventory, all of the things that you need to spend on to deliver the products and services to consumer. So let's use an example. Starbucks. Looks like a franchise. It's not a franchise. Has all the attributes of what you would normally think about a franchise, but you can't buy one. What the people at Starbucks have said is, we want to have a coffee shop on every street corner in the world. And they're working their way to doing that. But we want to control it all. So what we're going to do is we're going to pay for all the buildings. We're going to carry the cost for the inventory. We're going to pay all the employees. We're going to pay their benefits. We're going to pay for management for those employees. And we're going to take all the cost for running that business. But we're also going to keep all the money. So we take all the expense, which is considerable, and we keep total control over the business, and we keep all the money. Franchise companies say the same thing. They say, we would like to be on every street corner in the world, but we either don't have the deep pockets to take on all that cost, or we would rather not do it that way. We'd rather let other people pay for the cost of distribution. So what a franchise system does is it says, we're going to let the buildings and the employees and the insurance and all those costs, we're going to let the franchisees pay for that. We're going to put all the cost of operation on the franchisees, but not just on one. We're going to spread it out amongst a lot of people. So nobody is carrying the full burden, and it lets the franchise company get into the marketplace much more efficiently. Why do you care? What does this matter to you? What it means is it does have a consequence, and the consequence is that if the franchisor is only getting 5%, 8% of your gross, then if you don't do well, they don't do well. So it is in their interest to help you be successful. So this is their business model. This is what you may have wondered, why are some things a chain and why are some things a franchise? That's the reason. But it is to your advantage to go into the franchise model. Does that make sense? So again, important for you. Franchisors only do well when the franchisees do well. So that said, if I were to tell you about the best franchise system in the world, the one that's got all the best systems, it's got all the best products, and it's really just really great, you're still going to have a natural distribution. You're still going to have 20% on top, 60% average, and 20% on the bottom. Because not every franchisee implements as well as somebody else. You still got to take that great system and implement it locally. So there's a very, very big personal factor in the decision making. It's got to be the right franchise. It can't just be the best franchise. It's got to be the best franchise for you. So that's leading us into really what I hope you came here for tonight, is to understand how you figure out what's the best one for you. So first thing people should understand is that it's not burgers and fries. If I say franchise, you say McDonald's, right? But that's not all it is. In fact, there's 4,000 franchise companies in 90 different industries. Most of them are well established. So there are emerging brands, but the majority of them have been around for a while. They have hundreds of franchisees. If it's working for everybody else, conceivably it could work for you. There are, as I say, there are new cutting-edge emerging brands. For some people, that's where they belong. Some people need the safety of that proven concept. Some people prefer to have something that's new, cutting edge, not a lot of competition. The other thing that's very important, and this is where it makes a difference, this is where getting the right fit matters, the owner's role is different. There is no one business owner role. So the right fit is based on the individual. Before we start talking about industries, I want you to understand that there are two significant groupings of franchises. The thing that you mostly think about is, as a business owner, is the owner-operator model. I own this business, I work at it, it's my career. So it's a new full-time career. You've got a lot of choices inside of that, many choices, much more choices than the alternative. The owner's role is going to vary tremendously based on the business. Different skill sets are required. Different activities are going to be carried out. A much wider range of investment options than the alternative. Very often you can make a one-time investment. Here's my location, here's my shop, and I can scale it. I can make it as big or as small as I want it to be. And I can grow that from just one territory, one location. Sometimes you want to add more, but that's a choice that you can make. You can do very well out of one location. This is what the majority of franchising is about. But there is a second option, and that's the semi-absentee franchise. Notice I said semi-absentee. If somebody tells you that there's an absentee business that you can own and not have to work at it, they're lying to you. There is no such thing. Well, there is. You can buy stock in General Motors, and now you're an owner of General Motors, and you don't have to do anything. But if you want to have your own business, it can be semi-absentee. And the semi-absentee is really an investment strategy. It's for somebody who is looking to make money in a different way. So it could be for somebody who wants to have a business of their own, but likes what they perceive as the security of a job. Maybe they like the benefits that they're getting from their job. It could be that they're just looking for an alternative investment strategy. I want to diversify my portfolio. It could be that they're looking for a safety net. Maybe they've been laid off a couple of times and they want to have some backup income. A lot of reasons to do it, but it's an investment strategy. So what the business does is a lot less important than what kind of return it provides. The idea here is that you're going to hire a manager. The manager is going to manage day-to-day operations. You're going to manage the manager. You're going to manage data, which is part of managing the manager. And you're going to manage paid advertising. And that's typically going to be 10 to 20 hours a week. Compared to an investment that you would make in the stock market, it has a very good return on investment. If you're successful and it's a typical semi-absentee business, you're probably going to do much better than you would do in the stock market. So it gives you a good return on investment, but the investment that you have to make to get in is significantly higher in most cases than the options on the owner-operator side, and it's not scalable like the owner-operator side. Once you've penetrated your market, you're done. You've got to have another location if you want to do it, because these are mostly brick-and-mortar retail businesses. And the way you scale up is additional units. So as we start out, understand that you can be in either one of those, and they're very different. Even though they're franchises, they have very different purposes. So what's out there? What are your choices? As I say, there's 90 different industries, and unless you want me to bore you to death with 90 different industries, we can't do that. What I can do is I can share with you some of the things that most of my clients have looked at. Some have bought, some haven't. But these are the most popular industries that I see. So residential services is no doubt the most common thing that people have been going to, and this is mostly since COVID. Home improvement, pest control, damage restoration, HVAC. You wouldn't think that HVAC would be a franchise or roofing would be a franchise, but it is. So all kinds of residential services. You might not realize that B2B, business-to-business opportunities are out there. So that could be consulting. I hear a lot of people who are in career transition, job transition, and they say, well, I'm going to become a consultant. But they don't really know a lot about the business side of being, the advertising or the marketing or getting the clients. So in a franchise, you get a jump start. IT services, property management, commercial cleaning. There's all kinds of franchises in the B2B world. Senior care. This is high demand, lot of variety in terms of the kind of activity for the owner, and very profitable. So this is a business where the phrase I use for this is you can do well by doing good. Children's services. People are always going to spend money on their kids. I don't care what the economy is, we're going to spend money on our kids. So whether that's education, like I was in, or whether it's recreational, or whether it's daycare, all kinds of children's services businesses, and again, can be very profitable. And the other thing that people will always spend money on, regardless of the economy, is their pets. And you might be surprised if you were to look at the data on the pet industry. The growth in pet money that's being spent on pets is phenomenal. It's just skyrocketing, and looks like it's going to continue to do that. So that can be veterinary services. You probably think that you need to be a vet to own a veterinary office, but you don't. You can do that as a franchise. Boarding, daycare, grooming, supplies, all kinds of stuff in the pet world. Beauty and fitness. This is a very typical semi-absentee model. Hair salons, nail salons, lash salons. There were things that when I came into this franchise world that I learned that people do. I had no idea. I had no idea that there was a company, the businesses that just did eyelashes. Waxing is a huge opportunity. You wouldn't think so, but big opportunities in waxing. And of course, fitness. Both big gyms, Planet Fitness, and small gyms. I touched on this a little bit earlier with vets, but it's also true that if you want to own a chiropractic office, if you want to own a eye doctor's office, if you want to own a dentist office, you don't have to be any of those things to own the business. Again, those tend to be semi-absentee businesses. So what you see here is a lot of choices. Any of that surprise you? I got some yes and some no, so I'm glad. Any questions? There we go. So I knew somebody would talk to me.
Do you get a lot of clients where they own multiple franchises in different industries?
So do people have more than one kind of franchise? Yeah, they do. If they wanted my advice would be there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but that means that you've got to learn how to run two different kinds of businesses. If you want to have multiple businesses, why not have multiple locations of the same business? Now you only have to learn how to run one. But if you want to diversify, if you want to protect yourself against changes in the economy, that's not a bad strategy. So yes, some people do that. Other questions?
So for the semi-absentee, is that I'm literally just hiring one other person to run the business, and then I do what with that?
So I'm repeating your questions so that you can hear them. So the question is are you hiring one person, that person is going to run the business? And the answer is yes. Now, you may have 10, 15, 20 employees, but your manager is doing that. So you're managing the manager, and you're aided in that. The hallmark of a good semi-absentee franchise system is that they have built a data system that allows you to manage this thing at arm's length. So maybe you're only going to show up in the shop once a week, but you're going to spend a lot of time analyzing data and talking to your manager about that. And the manager is going to be managing the people.
And I'm assuming because if they're good to manage all those people, there's that idea of why don't they just do the business themselves? I'm assuming in this situation you are providing them with the capital and just experience maybe that allows them to be able to run it where they wouldn't be able to otherwise.
Well, exactly. So what if they could do it? Hair salons all over the place. They all have managers. That's because they don't at this time they don't have the resources to have their own shop.
I see.
So they run somebody else's shop, you know. It's why people go into management in every kind of industry. Right now, they can't do anything else but work. And some people don't want to take on the risk.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. So you're taking more risk than
Sure.
the manager under you.
Sure,
Gotcha.
sure. Yes, sir.
So does the franchisers, do they help with, do they teach you how to obtain more clients?
They provide, so great, that's a great question. Yeah, I've just got a request to repeat the question. So, do they teach you how to get customers? And the answer is yes. So every franchise system has a marketing system. They will provide you with all the tools. Most of this is going to be done digitally. Now, they provide you with the tools, but you have to implement it locally in most cases. So, you know, do they make it possible for you to get customers? Yes. Do they get the customers? No, you get the customers. It's your business.
Well, it's like you say, so for a pet grooming office, you would hire a manager to manage all of the employees that are grooming the pets and taking care of the pets.
Correct.
And while they're doing that, you would be using your tools that the franchisor has given you to find more clients and to all the marketing tools to.
Let me give you a real, I think, an example that will make it real clear. Damage restoration. Okay. Damage restoration, you don't do that digitally, right? You don't do that by putting ads in the paper. The way you do that business is you meet real estate agents, you meet insurance agents, you meet construction companies, and you go out and you talk to them as your referral partner. So networking is the way a damage restoration business gets their customers. What does the owner do in that business? The owner joins the Chamber of Commerce and goes to meetings and has lunch with other business owners and talks about what they do, because where they get their business is from other people. Make sense?
It does.
But it could be managing an advertising plan. It could be a lot of different things. But however you obtain your customers, the message I want to leave you with is you have to do it. They'll give you the tools, they'll give you the training, but you have to implement locally. Yes, ma'am.
So, for example, I know that Stanley Steamer is a franchise business that you can purchase. Who determines the region that you're going to serve?
Great question. So franchisors have very sophisticated systems, data systems, that based on their business, they say, well, for our business we need families with children, we need income levels of such and such, we need multifamily units, or we need single family units, and whatever other criteria they have, and then they go out and build maps based on that information, and they say, this is an area which would support one of our businesses, one of our franchisees. So they won't let you put a location in a place where they know it's not viable. Doesn't help them. Again, they're only successful if you're successful.
The question is, like In-N-Out Burgers on the West Coast, why aren't they here? That's, I think, is that more your question, Phyllis? Like, who decides that?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so I misunderstood your question. I thought you meant locally.
That's one part of it.
And repeat the question.
Okay. So, the other part of the question is, why does a franchisor decide they want to be in one region and not another region? I have a company that is in my portfolio of businesses, and it's a soup franchise. Great franchise in Minnesota. Great franchise in upstate New York. Not so great in Florida. So not every franchise is going to be good in every location in the country. That's one reason. I have another franchise that it's an emerging brand. It's a brand that is just starting out. And they pride themselves on the quality of the food that they sell. It's important to them that they have the distribution system expand as their reach expands, so that they know that they can get fresh food delivered to their franchisees. And if my warehouse is in Pittsburgh and you're in Arizona, how am I going to do that? So they're going to expand over time and let their distribution systems, their food distribution systems. So it comes down to there's business criteria that they need to satisfy. Usually it happens with things that are emerging brands. Yes, ma'am. I'm loving this group with questions.
So a good example is Raising Cane's,
Yes.
because they're all over Missouri,
Right.
but now they're in Maryland.
They're expanding slowly.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm having a real hard time repeating questions. So your example was Raising Cane, big in Missouri, big down south, not so big up north, and you can see they're moving up. It's an emerging, it may not seem to somebody that's down south that that's an emerging brand, but nationally it is. So another great example. All right, thank you for the questions. I said, so one of the things that I told you about earlier was that I left Volvo and I opened up 2 Huntington Learning Centers. Well, here's something that's interesting about franchises. If you were looking for another job, you would certainly polish up your resume to demonstrate that you have all of the skills necessary to work for that company, because it's going to be about what you're going to contribute to the company. It's always going to be about what you're going to do for the company. In the franchise world, you have the opportunity to say, what is the business going to do for me? Because franchisors don't care whether you have experience. In fact, in most cases, they would prefer that you not know anything about what they do. Because if you don't know how to run the business, you'll follow their system. And that's what brings success in the franchise world. Follow the system. If it's working for everybody else, it should work for you as long as you follow the system. So, if you can do anything, why not focus on what the business is going to do for you? There's a lot of ways to make money. There's not a lot of ways to make you happy. So why don't we focus on happy first and money close behind? Simple, right? So this, I think, is the most powerful thing about franchising. You can be anything. That's why you can own a dentist office, because you're not going to be a dentist. The reason that this is possible is because franchisors want you to work on the business, not in the business. They can teach you how to run a dentist office or a dog grooming business or a restoration business, because you're not going to do that. If you own a painting franchise, one of my favorite businesses, by the way, if you own a painting franchise, you'll never touch a paintbrush. If you have an IT franchise, you'll never fix a computer. And if you have a cleaning franchise, you'll never step foot into somebody's house to clean it. What you'll do is manage and grow your business, and the franchisor can teach you how to do that. It's really important to understand how well this works and how empowering it is for people who come into the franchise world. And again, find the right fit. What's going to make you happy? What are you going to look every morning? You want to get out of bed and say, I can't wait to get to work. That only happens if you find the right fit. Make sense? What's maybe the thought process? Again, this is so different that a career path that I want to talk about how you figure that out. And here's a question first.
One question about that previous slide. I might have these backwards in my note. Is the franchisor the top level?
Yeah, so franchisor, parent company.
And then
Franchisee
works under
was
the
me
franchisor.
with my Huntington Learning Center in Bel Air.
Okay.
Local shop owner.
And then you say you don't, painting franchise doesn't do painting. What are you doing then?
So I sold I got to keep remembering to ask the question again. So what am I doing? If I'm not painting, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
So A client of mine bought the rights to CertaPro painting in Baltimore County and Harford County. I needed my house painted. He came over, I called him and I said, I want my house painted. He came over, he looked at what I wanted done. He handled it all very professionally. He gave me a quote and a contract for everything that was going to be done, all beautifully, I mean, really professional. And I never saw him again. Because the painters came. He's not painting. He's out, he's giving people quotes. He's managing his marketing. He's managing his finances. He's networking, building that referral network.
So you're just emphasizing the fact that you're managing as opposed to doing
Right.
the like low level.
You're working on the business, not in the business.
Okay, I gotcha.
And all those details on how to generate a quote and what the pay rate should be for your employees, all those, I mean, the pay rate for your employees in Maryland here would be different for that up in Pennsylvania. I
Right.
would assume.
So the question is, the systems to get the right quote presented in the right way, in the right market, with the right pricing for that market. Does the franchisor teach you how to do that? Absolutely.
Okay.
That's exactly what the franchisors do. So they enable you to work on the business, not in the business, and let you work in any industry because you don't, if you had to also master painting or HVAC and run the business, my God, you'd never stop having to learn. But you don't have to do that. Make sense?
Indeed.
So, this is kind of the kinds of things I hear from people as I talk to my clients and we try to determine what will make you happy. What do I hear? Well, what I may hear is, I need something more challenging, something interesting. I'm bored with my work. I'm not having a good time at my job. Maybe I hear that I want to have more time for my family. When the kids are going to the zoo and they need a chaperone, I want to be able to do that. Maybe it's that I'm looking towards retirement and I want a retirement strategy. Maybe it's that I want more career control. I don't want to have another layoff. I would imagine that every one of you either has been laid off or know somebody has been laid off and you don't like it. That's why a lot of people come to franchising. You want financial independence and control over your own finances, not be dependent on somebody to give you a raise. Every Wednesday morning, you can't make an appointment with me on Wednesday morning because every Wednesday morning I play golf. I have control over my schedule. I work when I want to work. That's important to a lot of people. But the issue comes down to this. Pick a business based on what it's going to do for you, not what you're going to do for the business. Simple, but a real big shift in your thinking. Okay, so dig down a little bit deeper. I'm sure in your career that you have been to quality training, and people have told you the importance of quality. And therefore, when you're looking for a franchise, what you want to focus on is the franchise that has the best product or service quality. Obvious as could possibly be, and absolutely wrong. It's important. Please don't misunderstand me. It's not that it's not important. Obviously, whatever you're going to sell has to be attractive to a buyer, but it's not the first thing. McDonald's. We've all been to McDonald's. Even if you're a health nut, you've been to a McDonald's. And we like McDonald's. I particularly like the French fries. Yeah, all the heads are nodding. But you can make a better hamburger, can't you? You can make much better food than McDonald's. But I thought we said that quality, service, and product quality was the most important thing. You go in there and buy it when it's not the best. Why do you go to McDonald's? If it's not the hamburger, what is it?
Convenience.
I'm sorry?
Convenience.
Convenience?
Quick.
Quick? Dependable? You know what it's going to be. You see the yellow sign. You're driving down the interstate. You're hungry. You're going to go there because it's all of those things that you're looking for. What makes McDonald's successful is their business systems. That's why McDonald's, there's people all over with hamburgers. Why does McDonald's shine? Because of their systems. The golden arches. Sales, you don't maybe realize it, but when you walk in and you order something, that person at the cash register is in front of a point of sale system. That cash register is telling them, ask them if they want this, ask them if they want another thing. Do they want a milkshake? Do they want supersized? Whatever it is that they, but the computer, they have a sales system in McDonald's. You wouldn't think so, but they do. Operations. Think about who's working at McDonald's. Lower paid, working 24/7. Think about how difficult it must be to get those people to manage that staff. Think about how much food they're managing and how they need to control waste. Managing their inventory is crucially important. The franchisor, McDonald's, has that figured out, and they teach you how to do that. That's what makes McDonald's successful, that they're managing all their operational systems. Think how much cash goes through a McDonald's on a daily basis. They've got the accounting systems to manage that. If you're looking at a franchise, of course, it's got to be something that there's demand for. Please don't misunderstand me. But this is what's going to make you money. This is what's going to make you successful. It's the business systems. Yeah? This is probably the main reason why people, I'm thrilled at the number of people who showed up today. It's hard to get people to want to talk about a franchise because it's too expensive. I can't afford it. And if you, in fact, want to talk about McDonald's, you're right. At least you would be right for me. If you want to start a McDonald's, it's going to be about $1.5 million. I can't afford it. But that's not the story. There's a lot more to the story. If you look at the 4,000 brands that I told you are out there, and you look at the total investment, what does it cost to open the doors? And 3 months of operating capital. So if not $1 came in, you could stay afloat for 3 months, right? So all of your construction, all of your inventory, all of your equipment, everything you need to spend, and 3 months of operating expense. And you break down the 4,000, you would find that 11% of 4,000, so over 400, are under $50,000. That 16% are between 51 and 100. That 28% are under 250,000. So you've got 55% of 4,000 brands that are under 250,000. I'm not suggesting that 250,000 isn't expensive. It is. It's not $1.5 million. It doesn't have to be expensive. Moreover, as I'm going to share with you in the next slide, you don't need $100,000 to start a $100,000 business. You need to be creditworthy. You need to be able to raise that much money. But you don't have to have $100,000 to open that business. Questions on, we're going to talk a little bit more about funding, but yeah.
So when I went to the thing and I met with John Hewitt, because he's here trying to start a new ATEC, so I said to him, for somebody coming in fresh, what kind of realistic cost are you talking? He said $65,000.
So the question is, what kind of cost, what's needed to start up the franchise? And the answer that you got from someone was $65,000.
Without having existing business, he said $65,000. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I'd need to talk to John and see what he was saying to you. What I can say is that the franchise fee could be $65,000.
No, the franchise fee is $35,000.
Okay, if you want to open up, I'm trying to think of an example for you. If you want to open up there's an industry called assisted transition. It helps people find the right assisted living facility for their parents, right? And it's a consulting business to help you find the right place. you could probably start that for $65,000. If you want to open up a hair salon, probably $350,000.
But he's trying to grow it, that's the difference.
Well, it depends on what it is. 65,000.
The tax-
But if
business.
you know, if you're going to have a storefront, you're not going to have anything for $65,000.
Well, he said they come in, they build it, they do the whole 9 yards.
I'd have to know more about his situation, but this is a more a normal distribution. Okay, so how does yes, sir?
I was just gonna ask, is it normal for people to take out loans to do this?
Thank you. Question is it normal to take out loans? Well, let's talk about how you get the money. So the good news is there's a lot of ways that you can get money to start up your franchise. What some people will do, and I'm not a financial advisor, so keep that in mind as I say this, a lot of people will use their personal savings. So I'm going to have a $100,000 business, I'm going to write a check for $100,000. My opinion, last thing in the world that you want to do. Keep your cash in the bank. Use as little of your cash as you possibly can. Very difficult to save, very difficult to replace. So you want to use as little as you can. Done right, you might only have to put in 10–15% of the cost of starting the business from your cash. You are going to have to put some in, but you want to minimize it. Some people will go to friends and relatives, and maybe that's because we're going to have an active partner, and I'm going to do this with somebody else, and that helps me be able to raise more money. Sometimes it's I'm just going to get, I have right now a situation where I have a client who has found he has a mentor, and his mentor is willing to be a co-guarantor on a loan. So it could be like that. So partners and family members who are willing to help, that can be part of it. The most common thing is an SBA loan. This is what most people, regardless of franchise or those other options, if you're going to start a business, high likelihood you're going to be going for an SBA loan. Okay? SBA loans, if you try to do something on your own from scratch, you're probably going to need 30% of however much money it's going to cost. You're going to need that from your cash. If you buy somebody else's business or you buy a franchise, you're probably going to only need to put in 10–15%. Right? So $100,000 project, you only need $10,000. You have to be credit worthy. You may need collateral, although not always. So this is the most common thing that people do. Although right now, and that with the Fed dropping rates, we'll see a little bit of a drop in this. But yesterday, SBA loans were probably going to be in the neighborhood of 9%. So the interest rates are pretty high. So what a lot of people have been doing is using the equity in their home. They've been doing HELOCs or doing refis to take the money out of their home and use it, either in part or in total. So that's certainly an option for you. There is the option, I talked about buying somebody else's business. You could buy somebody else's franchise, and if you were doing that, you would probably be able to get the seller to hold some of the purchase price, and you pay that so you get an SBA loan for half, the seller gives you a promissory note for the other half, and you pay both the bank and that person over time. That's not uncommon. But then there's this big circle that I haven't shown you yet, and I pushed this last because your first reaction is going to be, get out of here, I don't want to even hear about that. But if you think about the whole thing through, and you need to learn, you would need to understand this better than I can explain it in this short time, that is the option of using retirement money. The worst thing that you could do with your retirement money is take a distribution and lose 10% in penalties and have to pay taxes on whatever you took out. So you're going to lose 30–40% of whatever you take out. That's a bad idea. There is an alternative. If you quit your job and you went to work for another employer, you might do a rollover. Take your money from the current 401k and put it into the new employer's 401k, and you would tell plan administrator what you wanted to invest in. If you start your own corporation and you do it in the right way, there are things you would need help in setting it up, you can have a 401k plan for you and your employees. And you can roll your money into that plan. And you can tell the plan administrator to buy General Motors or 3M or Fidelity funds, whatever you want, including shares of your own company. So now you take $100,000 or whatever you do out of your 401k and you buy stock in your own company, and your company gets the money. You don't get the money. No taxes, no penalties. Your company gets the money, and you use that money to fund your business. And if you're successful, you'll probably beat what the market is going to pay you. So not for everybody. Some people will do this for the whole cost. Some people will do half SBA, half this, or some other combination. Some people will use this for a salary. But understand, you're buying stock in your company. You don't have the money. Your company does. You and your company are two different entities. Yes, ma'am.
So what happens from a tax standpoint doing that if the company fails?
If the company fails, so the question is, what happens if the company fails? Same thing happens when General Motors fails during COVID. You lose all your money.
But you're still with no tax liability.
Correct.
Sweet, I like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't see
As you
that
think it
problem.
through, it really makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
especially when interest rates are 9%. So let's suppose you're making 4%, maybe 5% on your investments. Probably right, maybe even a little generous, or pay SBA 9%. You're giving up 5 points. Doesn't make any sense. So the issue here is that franchises aren't expensive as you may think. There's a lot of variety. There's a lot of different ways to raise the money. And you don't need the full amount. You need the ability to fund. You do have to be creditworthy. Okay? Any other questions? Good. Of course, if you're a good capitalist, you believe that if you invest $500,000 and if I invest $50,000, you're going to make a lot more money. Just logic, right? You're going to make 5% on your bigger amount. So if you don't invest a lot in a franchise, you're not going to make much money. It's got to be a big, expensive franchise. It's got to be McDonald's. Not at all. There isn't any correlation between the investment level and the income level. The investment is driven by the nature of the business. So if you want to have a brick and mortar retail business, you've got to pay for construction and furniture and flooring and walls and inventory and on and on and on and on. If you open a business that you can run from home, you have no rent. Let me give you a real example. My Huntington Learning Centers, each one cost me, 25 years ago, each one cost me $250,000 to open. My FranNet franchise cost me about $50,000 to open. I've always made more money from my FranNet business. But I wanted to have a business that helped kids, so I had to pay that much money to get into that business. It's driven by what business you want to get into, not necessarily how much money. If your budget is lower, then we want to be looking at service businesses that you can either operate from home or a small commercial space. Make sense? So that was an aspect of managing risk. Keep your costs down. Don't invest more than you can safely afford to do. So let's talk a little bit about managing risk. That's, I think, one of the other issues that keeps people from considering business ownership in general and franchises included. So one way to manage risk is to look for businesses that are recession resistant, that are less subject to variations in the marketplace. So what that might be. Businesses that are driven by demographics. In-home care, aging in place. Mom and dad are getting on in years. We really don't want to put them in assisted living, but we can't leave them alone every day. In-home care is a solution to that. We can have somebody come in, make sure mom's taking her medication, maybe take her shopping, maybe play cards with her, a companion. We can also have health services brought in, and that can be a franchise that does that. Recession resistant. Nobody's going to mistreat mom because of the economy. Looked like you had a question.
So is Visiting Angels one of those? Is that a franchise?
Visiting Angels?
Visiting Angels.
If Visiting Angels, I don't think it's a franchise, but it's that same model.
It's that model.
Yeah, it's that model. It's that model. So the question was, is Visiting Angels in this category? Kind of. It's just not a franchise. Residential and home repairs. When I was 35 and the gutters needed cleaning and the windows needed washing, out came the ladder. And I was on that roof like a squirrel. You think I'm getting up there now? You've lost your mind. There's no way, but the gutters don't care. Windows don't care. They want to be cleaned and out. So residential services, lawn care, window washing, power washing, gutters, any kind of residential service driven by demographics. And stuff's got to happen. Residential cleaning, same idea. There are things that from COVID we've started to call essential services. If we have a bad economy, automobile sales drop. Auto repair doesn't drop. There's a lot of, in fact, maybe it's going to go up because of sales dropping, right? I got to keep my car running. That goes regardless of the economy. Damage restoration, your basement floods, your roof leaks, you have a small fire, those things have to be taken care of. It's not discretionary.
Visiting Angels is a franchise.
Is it? Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
And that's, you know,
Yeah, and I know somebody that owns one, and I'm thinking,
yeah.
yeah.
Sign companies. You wouldn't think it, but sign companies are not affected much by bad economy, and commercial cleaning services not affected. And then there's a category that a lot of people don't think about, which is B2B. Small businesses are not going to go down without a fight. So if it's a bad economy, I'm going to bring in some expense reduction franchise companies to help me get my expenses under control. I'm going to bring in sales training. I'm going to bring in other ways that I can try to save my business. B2B is fine in a bad economy. So you can always find a business, a franchise business, that will be fine in a bad economy. Other issues on risk reduction is a couple of things about the economics of it. We already established that you don't have to spend a lot to make a lot. Invest what you can safely afford. You got 4,000 choices out there. You don't have to choose something that's expensive to be successful and to find something that you're going to enjoy. So be careful with your budget. Don't overextend. Think about what you're going to need to cover emergencies and make sure that you've got that after you make your investment. Look at businesses that have low fixed costs. My Huntington Learning Center in Bel Air, I was paying $95,000 a year for rent. The landlord didn't care if I was having a bad year. He wanted his $95,000 for rent. Don't buy that kind of business if you're worried about a recession. Low fixed expenses will protect you. Understand that the first year, and it could be less, it could be more, but for our conversation, not knowing what business we're talking about, assume that if you start a business, it's going to be quite a while before you start making any money. And probably 3 years before you start hitting your goal. So you need to know what the cash flow ramp is going to be, and you need to understand how you're going to survive that startup period. And look at funding options. Most of you probably had no idea that rollover option was available. Look at options. There is more than the SBA, and if you're going to look for an SBA loan, don't just go to one bank. Different banks have different appetites for different kinds of businesses. They have different fees. So shop around. You don't have to just go to one bank. But the biggest issue for risk management is to do due diligence, is to take your time, as I said in the very beginning, and understand what the business that you're looking at is all about. Take time. So, first piece of advice in this regard is don't look at just one business. I see this all the time. A lot of times people will come to me and they'll say, I'm looking at this business and I'd like you to help me evaluate it. Why not? We've got 4,000 choices. Why are you looking at one? So I encourage my clients to look at 3 or 4 franchises that match their goals. So the first thing you want to do is establish what is it that you're trying to accomplish, and then go find 3 or 4 businesses that will do that, and then start looking at not only the quality of the product, but the quality of the business systems, and compare and contrast their policies. What's their royalty fee? Is it 5% or 8%? And on, all kinds of other fees that may be associated with the business. Take the time. Don't just go with the business. Understand what the policies and procedures are. Again, 90 industries. You can do any one of them. Why limit yourself to just one industry? Look at some variety. You may find something that you would have in a million years never thought was the right business for you, and when you learn about it, you say, wow, this would be great, I would love to do this. And then once you've selected the business, then do careful due diligence. So what is due diligence, which I think is the driver of success? What does it look like? Broad strokes. So the first thing that happens is that you reach out to the franchisors that you're interested in, and you express interest, and they'll spend 3 or 4 weeks explaining to you, high level, how they do marketing. How do they find customers? How do they help you find customers? How do they do training? What's the sales process look like? What's your role look like? What's the IT support? High level, here's how we do business. This is what you're going to get if you join us. Okay? You'll also get in there a document that is very, very important. We could spend the hour and a half that we've got tonight just talking about a document called a Franchise Disclosure Document, the FDD. It is extremely important. I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about it. Again, much more complex than this. Typically, they're about 450 pages long, and not the most exciting read in the world. But it's got very important information. So, examples. All kinds of information about the franchisor. Who founded the company? Who's running it today? What's their background? Have there been any litigation against the franchisor? Has there been litigation against the officers of the company? Where was that litigation filed? What was it about? And how was it disposed of? Have there been bankruptcies of the business or of any of the officers? What happened there? I think you would want to know that. You'll also get financial information about the franchise. Profit and loss statements for a couple of years back, balance sheet. If you have good financial analysis strengths, great. If you don't, get an accountant to look at it. A lot of important information to understand how the business works and how stable they are. You don't want to get into a franchise system that's going to go under in 2 years. You will get information about the gross revenue that the businesses produce. So they'll say, of our 200 franchisees, this is the average gross revenue for the top quartile, for the second quartile, for the third quartile, fourth quartile. This is how many are in that. This is what kind of revenue they're generating, and over time. Cost. If you're starting a business from scratch, one of your biggest challenges is try to figure out how much is it going to cost me to start this business, and you don't have a lot of help. If you start a franchise, there's a section of the FDD that breaks down, itemized, how much you're going to pay for signage, construction, inventory, initial marketing, everything that you're going to spend money on. That chart that I showed you, the startup cost, it's all going to be broken down, and it's going to give you a range. Because if we start a business in Bel Air or Bethesda, it makes a difference. Right? So they'll give you a range. Huge help when you're trying to evaluate, can you safely afford this business? Probably the most powerful thing is the list of existing and past franchisees, because you can reach out to the people who are doing this and ask them, what's it like? Is it really as good as they told me it is? Is the marketing so great? Is the training really world class? And believe me, they will tell you the truth. You want to talk to at least 10 existing franchisees, and if you can talk to more, you'll be better off. And if it's a great system and everybody you're talking to is happy, keep calling. Keep calling until you find somebody that's not happy. Every system has people that aren't happy. Find them.
So you would also want to talk to the past franchisees too, if possible.
The question is, would you want to talk to past franchisees? And absolutely. Absolutely. Did they get out because they didn't like it? Or did they get out because they need more time to spend their money? That was a joke. You're supposed to laugh. There's a lot more in the franchise disclosure document. It's really important. So what else? So you spend 3-4 weeks talking to the franchisor, learning how their system works. Second step is you start doing the validation. You said it was world-class training. What do the franchisees say? So you validate what you've been told with existing and past franchisees. You're going to, during this step, you're also going to start developing your financial projections, both your how much money you're going to make, but also what are you going to have to invest. And when you've got that done, then you can start looking for funding options. As you're going through this, and if you followed my advice and you started off with 3 or 4 franchises, with each step you drop some off. So if you started with 3, go into validation with 2. You finish validation, you probably want to be down to 1, because now you're going to start spending money. You really do need to bring in an attorney. I would not let one of my clients work with me if they didn't agree to have a franchise attorney, someone who's familiar with franchise law, look at the contracts and help them understand what they're getting into. Crucially important. If you don't have good financial literacy, you don't know how to read a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet, get an accountant to do it. So you want to start bringing in experts. This is also where you may want to go back to the county, and you may want to be talking to the SBDC and getting coaching on how to develop your business plan. A business plan is crucially important. A bank will not give you a loan without a good, solid business plan. The SBDC will show you how to do it, but that's not the reason to do it. The reason to do it is to make sure that you've crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's, to make sure that you've thought everything through. So yes, the bank needs it, but I encourage you to do it for your own purposes. You can find a template in the SBDC's website. They have templates for doing a business plan, but the coaches, counselors from the SBDC are expert at working with you on that. And then finally, I would encourage you to be patient and thorough. When I start with my clients, I tell them that they need to expect 3 to 6 months at least to get through all of what I just outlined. That's where success comes from. Questions on any of that? Okay. So, coming to an end. Why does franchising work? I think there's a couple of things that you want to be thinking about. First, it's a proven and systematic approach to owning your own business. Again, comparing it to starting something from scratch. You don't know what you don't know, and you don't have a whole lot of support in figuring it out. So when you buy into a franchise system, you're buying the experience. We know it works for other people. It should work for you. You know it's working for other people because you did your due diligence. It's simple. You don't have to develop all the procedures and processes as if you were compared to starting on your own. They're going to not only provide you with initial training, but they're going to provide you with ongoing support. And that support could come in the form of training, but it also could be a lot of other things. I like to use an example of Meineke. You familiar with that name? Mm-hmm. Right, Meineke? If you're as old as me, and you're not, you would know that that company started out as Meineke Muffler. Meineke Mufflers, that's what they did. They replaced mufflers. And back 30 years ago, people were replacing mufflers every 5 years. I bet you've never replaced a muffler. But they used to get replaced all the time. If you owned a muffler shop, you wouldn't have seen the change coming, where the car manufacturers went to stainless steel systems and now they don't fail anymore. And if you didn't see it coming, you'd go out of business. Meineke, their whole business was based on that, but they saw it coming. And they converted their business over time into Meineke Car Care. So now that's not their business. Now they do tune-ups and they do oil changes and they do all kinds of service work. Very profitable, very successful. The ongoing support that I'm talking about here is the franchisor is paying attention to the marketplace. You're paying attention to implementing in Bel Air, in Harford County. Question? Oh. You may get name recognition. You all knew Huntington. None of you knew Frannet as a franchise. So sometimes you get it. We talked about the operating, all those systems that you need. You're going to get all of those packaged up and you're going to get trained how to use them. And I think the most important thing that you're going to get is a culture of teamwork. If you start on your own, at some point, something's going to go wrong. And you're going to say, oh, what do I do? I never expected this. I don't know how to deal with this. And you got to figure it out on your own. That's going to happen to you in the franchise business too. But the first thing that you can do is you can call the franchisor and say, what do I do? This has never happened before. Well, they probably have seen it happen, and they'll tell you how to get out of it. But here's what most people will do. There are 17 other Huntington Learning Centers in Maryland and DC. And when things went wrong for me, I would call the franchisor, but I would be more likely to call the other franchisees in Maryland because they do business in my marketplace. And here's the important thing. There is no internal competition. Franchisors, back to the question before about how do they build territories, franchisors build their territories in a way that you're not competing with one another. And how do we protect the brand? By making sure that every location is doing the best possible work. So I want to help all the other franchisees. I want to make them successful. They're not taking any business from me, but they are going to help with building up the brand. So the idea that you have a whole network of people there to help you when things go bad is, I think, one of the most powerful things about franchises. And that is that you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So here comes the advertisement. You can stop listening. Why would you want to work with me? Well, Frannet, there are a lot of franchise consultants out there. Frannet is the first one. We created the industry. So we've been doing this for almost 40 years. We're all over the country. I'm the franchisee from Maryland and the district, but I help people all over the country. We're the only franchise consulting group that's a national partner with both SCORE and the SBDC. So I think that gives us a little bit of credibility. And what we do is what you just heard. You can do that on your own. Most franchisors would tell you, if they were talking to you generally about franchising, they would rather that you come to them through a franchise consultant. Because I'm going to make sure that all those things happen. All that due diligence happens. All the matchmaking happens so that when you finally get to them, they know that you're a quality candidate. Because that's what I do. I help people become successful in franchises. So, that, if you have your phone and you want to follow up with me, you can take a quick picture of that. I'm going to put out business cards. I was in such a rush to get in that I didn't put my business cards out, and Nancy's going to tell me something.
You didn't tell them yet that they don't have to pay you anything.
Oh, I didn't tell you that you don't? Yeah. So typically I work with people for 6 months. Typically, and it could be a year. Typically, we work together at least once a week for an hour a week. And I do not charge you anything to do that. But I do make money. I make money from the franchisors. The franchisors pay me to bring them talent, to bring them people who are going to be successful. If you buy McDonald's for $1.5 million, or you buy a FranNet for $50,000, I'm going to get paid about the same. So I don't have a dog in the hunt. My role, and the only way I can be successful, is I help the franchisors be successful. And my clients, of course. Yes, sir.
Do you provide resources for anyone who's looking to become a franchisor?
I don't, but SBDC very often sends me people who are, they want to convert their business into a franchise. And while that's not what I do, I very often will take, have a couple of phone calls, help them understand how ready they are, and if they're ready, then I introduce them to the consultants who do that kind of work.
I see. Okay.
So I can help you get to where you need to be.
Do you have like good referrals for like lawyers and like accountants in case?
Absolutely. So the question was, do I refer to lawyers and whatnot? I refer to lawyers, I refer to lenders, I refer to accountants, I refer to realtors, whatever resource that you need that requires more special support than I can provide, and the franchisors are going to provide, because the franchisors will provide it as well. So yes, I'll help you. Franchise attorneys and accountants in particular are important. So yes, I do help with that. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have an off-the-wall question. So, have you ever had somebody come to you and tell them, don't become a franchisee?
As recently as this week.
Question.
So the question was, do I ever have people who I say, this isn't right for you? And the answer is absolutely. I do it all the time. Sometimes it's about money, but not always. More questions? No, we're good? In that case, I'm going to turn it back to Raj, who will finish it up.
So I think we've learned quite a bit. This was a great presentation, and for those of you that have the entrepreneurial spirit and looking for new opportunities, I think franchising, and I can attest firsthand of just how transformational that can be as a business venture. So I think you did a great job. So on behalf of the Harford County Department of Economic Development, HYPE, SBDC, and all the partners that made today happen, Richard, thank you so much for a great presentation. This was so beneficial and so helpful. And again, I want to thank you so much for this time. So.
Thank you. Thank all of you. Thank you. I'm going to put out some brochures and stuff out here. I didn't get a chance to set it up before, but if you want my card or anything else, it'll be out here.